Welcome in the House of Horns. My name is Victor Corona, aka Victor Producer, and join me as always is Gilbert Manzano, who does it for Sports Illustrated MMQB. And Gilbert, the Rams get stunned by the Panthers 31-28 and give away the top seed in the NFC. I said beware of this game, Gilbert. It was going to be perhaps a trap game, and it really was a trap game for the Rams. Just give me your takeaways from this loss to the Panthers, Gilbert.
Yeah, this was a game you could not afford to lose. This was a devastating setback. And, you know, sometimes a loss is a loss and it wasn't your day. And sometimes you just take the trap game on the chin. But when you're in a close NFC West battle, when you're in the fight for the number one seed, you cannot lose games like this. This is what makes teams from being the top seed to a third seed or a fourth seed. And this was a critical error here. And you got the Seahawks right now who just scored a touchdown, probably gonna beat the Vikings in this rookie quarterback that they have here. That's how you handle business. The 49ers beat down the Browns. That's how you handle business. And we just kind of just assume it's a two-team race. Now it's a three-team race. The 49ers are right there in it because you couldn't handle business in Carolina. And I know there's a lot of talk about Stafford being MVP. A lot of talk about Stafford having the streak of touchdowns and no interceptions, 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions today. So even that's in question now, the MVP. So, they're probably going to be fine. They're going to probably recover next week and beat up on Arizona. But when they're looking at the number 2 seed or maybe lose the NFC West, point back here to week 13 against Carolina.
Yeah, and I kept looking at this game and it just was going the way I kind of thought it would go. McVay just refuses to run the ball for whatever reason. They keep getting beat in time of possession. In this game it was 24-35 in terms of the time of possession. And then the defense, Gilbert, they just aren't getting sacks for whatever reason. 2 sacks in this game, and I didn't even see that they were putting the pressure on this Panthers offense. And we talked about it on the regular Compass. The Panthers have been good one week and bad one week. This was the week they were going to be good, right? We talked about it just because that's the way their season has gone this year. But for the Rams, it just continues to be like the things we talked about that haven't been shorn up, and we kept getting called out because they were winning 6 games in a row. But the secondary, once again, Emmanuel Forbes just got destroyed in 2 touchdowns there. And the same thing continues to see. And again, they gave up 162 yards on the rushing yards. 141 came from Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle. They couldn't tackle for crap in this game, and so it's just like the things we continue to talk about. They keep popping up, and eventually they came out in a bad time, Gilbert. And I just like in one way I'll say this might have been a good, you usually don't talk about these things and you say, well, this might have been a good loss. Like, how you have moral wins. I feel like this might have been a good loss because I even talked about it. They might be peaking too early, and maybe this kind of puts them back, you know, like because there was a lot of talk now, like you talked about MVP talk for Matthew Stafford. Oh, this is the best team. You can, the Rams, they look like the best team in the NFL. And now you get kind of punched in the mouth, and now you get back to reality. So maybe in a good way, this was a good loss for the Rams.
Yeah, I can't see that. This was a big time mistake here. Like you should have won and handled business. And the difference between top that and like NFC number one seeds usually only lose 3 times, or like maybe like last year was 15-2 for the Detroit Lions. So to me,
Yep.
now you pretty much have to win out. And I know the Eagles are struggling. The Bears have a difficult schedule, but the Bears are now the number one seed in the NFC.
Yep.
And now that I think about it, the Eagles' schedule lets up. They play the Commanders twice and the Raiders once in the next 5 weeks. So you lost a tiebreaker there to Philly. So it's not a given anymore. You don't have the pass here. So to me, I don't want to hear any excuses about a moral losses or whatever. I think Kobe Turner said something about like, "Oh, this is a positive here. I'm excited about what the future brings." Like, all right, bring your best against the Seattle Seahawks and the Detroit Lions in a 4-day span. Good luck with that. But you should have handled business against Carolina and Arizona here. And I'm glad you brought up the defense because, this defensive front, they're good, but they're a little overrated because they don't really go for they don't have money plays. They don't have clutch plays. They don't have game changing plays. They're consistent. They apply pressure. They don't get the sacks like you're talking about, Vic. And they were a little bit helped out in a way, which was a good surprise. The secondary was feisty. They were making the turnovers. They were batting down balls. They were making the game changing plays. And then today, when you needed to have some sort of pressure, the secondary got exposed again. Bryce Young, from all quarterbacks who couldn't do anything against the 49ers pass rush uh, on Monday night, lights you up. Jalen Coker, Ted McMillan, you name it. The play on Chuba Hubbard, poor, awful tackling. So if you want to be this best defense in the football, you want to get the credit, go bring down the quarterback, especially a quarterback like Bryce Young. So, I like the front. It's just, to me, it's like, if I'm going to give the Seahawks crap about not having elite playmakers on their defense, who's their elite playmaker defensively? Jared Verse has not had the second year dominance that I thought. Kobe Turner hasn't had it either. Braden Fitz has regressed. He had a nice play, though, in the first half. Byron Young has been fading. You invested all this money on the front to help you out in the linebacker position. Nate Landman has been a great positive to this team to help out up front, has not been delivering. Nate Landman has been the glue for the secondary. So again, I've been critical of the secondary, but for the most part, they've been having game-changing plays. The front has not done that. I can't remember the time where Jared Verse had a big-time play. He's supposed to be your elite playmaker, and right now, I get PFF is giving him good numbers. I get that he has pressure, but sometimes football is not that complicated. Go make a freaking play. And credit to the Panthers. They made the play on Stafford where they forced him to fumble. Game over right there. So ugly game all around, and they're going to be fine. They're going to fight for the NFC West. They're going to fight for the number 1 seed. But I'm telling you, Vic, this game's going to haunt them one way or another in the standings, because right now Seattle's not losing, and they're going to be tied still with Seattle and have the tiebreaker and be in first place. Man, there's so much football left that you could have had a nice cushion right here.
Yeah, and you got to take care of business, especially when these kind of games are going to sneak up on you. And like I said, I'll get to Daniel Calderon's comment here. Home field advantage is needed this year. Too good to not get home field to go to the Super Bowl. Anything but a Super Bowl is a waste of this year. And especially when you have Stafford playing the way he is, you also look at the way this game went, and it's kind of aggravating having to watch this in terms of being able to take care of business. Like, felt like a game that you saw against the Jaguars where they just wanted to throw the ball. They wanted to get ahead, which they did, but the problem is that the Panthers came to play. The Panthers had a bunch of guys out in this game. They had a starting safety, a starting corner out, and yet you still couldn't take advantage of it. And Matthew Stafford finally came back to life again, with the 3 turnovers in this game. I think that was huge. If he doesn't throw that pick six, they'd probably win this game. But that's the thing. You've been relying so much on Stafford that's why I said you should kind of run the ball in this game. Corum was, he was running well in this game, and Kyron Williams gets hurt with an ankle injury there, and I thought, okay, this is the time they're gonna lean on Corum. They did. He gave him a spark, but then they just went away from him once again, and I just don't understand it, Gilbert. Again, the same thing with McVay, and everybody's on here. They're all talking about it, about the game management again from McVay. It just continues to go once again. Not the Rams way when it comes to McVay and the game management.
Yeah, no, like if you look at the numbers, like Blake Corum and Kyron Williams had a great day. It was just they went away from these guys, and like, why not just do what the Bears did on Black Friday against the Eagles, where like it's not Caleb Williams' day, run the freaking football and just get out with the victory. They got close at the end, but they just kept running the football, eating the clock, controlling the tempo of the game, dictating their terms. Like, sometimes it's okay to run the football all day, and they could have just done the same thing there, and they didn't want to. And it was finally a game that I've been waiting for Blake Corum. But he probably should have gone over 100 yards rushing. Same thing with Kyron Williams. He probably should have kept feeding them. And then early on, I don't know if Stafford got into his head or somebody told him, hey, man, you need one more touchdown for the record here of 28 consecutive touchdown passes without an interception. That record is yours. Because after that, he was forcing the football, especially in the end zone, or when they got into the red zone. for his first pick. He was forcing one to Puka, forcing one to Devontae. I'm like, what is he doing here? This is not what he normally does. And sure enough, he got picked off. Then he got picked off again. It felt like, and to the Worms, credit on the comment saying like they weren't playing down to the competition, but something felt like they had more leeway. Like, oh, I could do this. I could throw this pass right here through this tight window. And I'm
Yeah.
like, were they trying to downplay the competition and say we'll be fine? We could try some things here. Um, Maybe that again the record got into his head because after that he was careless with the football, got the 2 interceptions, and then he got a little skittish after that. Um, then you put your position, you put your quarterback in a position to make a game-winning play. So you're not thinking about protecting the football as much, and then damn, boom, the strip sack right there for the game being over. So it was not Stafford's day, and as a coach, Sean McVay needs to realize that and go for the rushing attack and opt for that way. Maybe Chris Shula, same thing. Be aggressive. You need a takeaway. You need a game momentum changing play. So overall, bad coaching, bad defense, careless with the football, Stafford, and I think he still could win the MVP, but because there's not anybody trying to run away with it, Jonathan Taylor was again. We'll see what Drake May does on Monday Night Football, but it's still his award. But you could have made it a convincing runaway front runner right now.
Yeah, and ESG makes a great point, and I'm with him on this. This is why I'm like maybe this is a win you can, I mean a loss that you can be okay with because he says I don't know, but Seattle doesn't look too good right now. You can assume team schedule against bad teams are going to be wins, and he's right. Like we saw this week. I mean, it's been all chaos this weekend. So I'm like everybody, all the heavy favorites all lost. The Lions lost. The Eagles lost. Like it seems like all the top teams in the NFC lost. Of course, the Packers won because they were going up against another good team there. But it's hard to predict this year. And but at the same time, I understand where you're coming from, Gilbert, because like there's no dominant team. You need to take care of business when you have a chance to. So I get where you're coming from there. And then
They're up 10-0 right now. They're going to be fine. They're going to be tied
yeah,
with the Rams right now, and they still get to
yeah,
play each other one more time
one more
in
time. Yep,
Seattle. I know the Seahawks are going to play the Falcons, and you're right. It's an any given Sunday. Maybe they could lose to the Falcons, who have a knack of playing close games and then losing at the end.
yep,
Maybe they'll push them. I doubt it with Kirk Cousins, and then after that, they have to play the Colts. So you never know
yep.
with that. But I just thought the Rams would have been in a good position if you beat the Panthers and beat the Cardinals, and then let's see what happens with both teams getting tough schedules. They have to face the Lions and the Seahawks. Seahawks face the Colts in Seattle, and then get the Rams in Seattle. To me, I think the advantage win the points back to them. But after that, say they lose to Seattle, I don't know what the points are in terms of tiebreaker. So there's still a lot to be determined. But again, it's just like something you could have, avoided to be in this position where you're looking at the standings and looking for help. But I get it. It is a weird football week, but every time you look at the number one seed, it doesn't matter because it's going to even out. It's going to be like you're going to be 14-3 or 15-2, and they already have 3 losses right now.
Yeah, and I feel like the top. This is why I don't pay attention to power rankings. I don't make a big deal out of it because it seems like the number one team every week keeps getting knocked out.
Yep.
So I'm like, what's the point? Like this is one of those crazy years where honestly there's no dominant team, and that's what it kind of makes the NFL what it is. I mean, because we haven't had this in a while. It seems like it's been the Chiefs or it's been the Patriots for a long time now, and with the Chiefs kind of getting beat up now, it's up in the air this year. And so you have a chance. And I get the frustration right now from Ram fans, and you should be frustrated. I mean, even Q Fade says he says I want to slack McVay with that effing gel in his hair. Like, I mean,
Whoa.
that's how frustrated that's how frustrating it is. And then ESG is right. Like, I wouldn't be surprised next week if the Lions were to beat actually it's the Packers, right? The Packers face the Bears, I think,
Yeah, yeah.
next week. So I
The
like I
Bears are
said, I
rolling
wouldn't
right
be
now.
surprised there either. But the problem is the Packers have that tie, and now that tie might come in a play. So that's another thing too. So and then the Worm says 100% must win out. Tough road ahead with the crowded division. And like I said, I still think this division is going to get 3 teams in the playoffs, especially with the 49ers win today. It's hard not to see them get in now, Gilbert. Um, but it's going to be tough. And shout out to the Panthers, man. Like, I get it. I know they're in your wins team this year. You picked them up, um, and you had them going to the playoffs before the season. So shout out to you for that one. But I want to give them
Yeah.
credit here. They played a great. Dave Canales is doing a great job, and so I don't want to take away from them because they played a great game offensively, and I thought they did. They came in with a great game plan as well. Like they were running the ball at him, and we talked about Ebro. Like we said, like, hey, this guy was on this staff for a while there. Like he knew how to go up against McVay, and he did a great job, even with a bunch of dudes out for him. So I want to make sure I give the Panthers their credit here because, like I said, we knew they were going to play better. I didn't take much of it. That's why I thought this was a dangerous time to play the Panthers.
Yeah, I'm not gonna take full credit for the Panthers because this team has just been annoying. I'm done being supportive or just pay attention to that team because I want my predictions to be right. So if I ignore Carolina and always pick against them, they're gonna be fine because that's the way they've
Yeah.
been doing. I picked them against the 49ers on Monday, they lost. I picked the Rams against the Panthers won. So I'm done talking about this team, thinking about this team. Uh, if I do that, maybe they'll win the division. They still have a tough schedule, two games against Tampa Bay. So we'll see if they win the division. I got them in my wins challenge too, so I'm done paying attention to that team. Credit to them; they're very inconsistent. They're probably going to be 9-8 or 8-9. That's where they're headed. This was the old days, it would be 8-8 team for sure. 500 team that wins one, loses one. But hey, to their credit, they did beat up the Rams. They were not afraid. But things when you're an underdog, you could tell when there's an upset brewing. When you let a catch and run play for Chuba Hubbard break loose, when you get an interception, when you get a pick six, like you knew the game was going to be close and after the first quarter. So, cue the face says Lake being out, Quentin Lake being out is bigger than we realized. Yeah, he's a versatile player. He's not a star player, but I think he's going to get a nice contract from either the Rams or somebody else in free agency because he could play it in the slot. He could play safety. He could, make plays as a ball hog. So, and he's a leader too, and he's a smart player. So I think that's going to really affect this team here. So, I know people have been calling me out for calling out the secondary, but they're not loaded with talent. They're not a great secondary, but when they're in like a full collective unit and have depth, they're pesky. They're going to fight. But they've been doing well because the front gets pressure. And on a day where the front doesn't get any pressure or at least no sacks or anything, you're going to get exposed. And that's what happened today. So, I'll give credit all around, to the Panthers, but the Rams should not have been in this position. With you knew off the bat, after everything I listed right now, that was going to be a close game where they were just playing with their food pretty much.
Yeah, and Happy Gilmore makes a good point here. Like Shula playing soft coverage, Panthers shoving the run down the Rams' throat, and I think that was a honestly that was the biggest thing offensively, and and they stayed aggressive. I thought I'm like, if you give the ball back to the Panthers, you're not getting it back just because this defense hasn't played well enough. I thought they might have won this game when the Panthers, I think it was in the third quarter, and they had the ball in the Rams side of the they were going in for a potential a field goal, and then they sacked them, then they got a penalty there, and so they were able to force the Panthers to punt there, and I'm like, okay, now they might be able to win this game. But then they came back on that 4th and 2, and Emmanuel Forbes just got beat there on that 4th and 2, and I was like, "Yeah, you're not getting the ball back unless you score there." And I'm like, they're either going too fast or they're going too slow there at the end. And the game management again with McVay was just bad there. And so we'll see what happens here. But yeah, it's been bad with Verse too. Like Burst was just shut out in this game. You didn't hear anything from him. Fisk had a sack. I think Colby Turner had a sack, but outside of that, like you said, it's been pretty bad for this team, and we'll see what happens now. They get ready to face the Cardinals on the road again before they get that home game against the Lions, and then they have to go up to the road on a short week to face the Seahawks. But yeah, it's not a it's a terrible loss, terrible timing for a loss when you should have taken care of business, Gilbert.
Yeah, Vic, I know you got to get to all these comments here,
Yep.
so I'm gonna let you go right here. But Yeah, it was
Yeah, just give me your final thoughts here, and then we'll end it there, Gilbert.
okay. I pretty much already said everything. This was a bad loss for this team. Yeah, and again, and what Alpha you said, Victor, it was week to week league, and you said it's going to be a dangerous game. It was all set up for this team, and they blew it. And I thought they're going to dominate, and they did not. But yeah, I don't know what to say anymore because I've already repeated myself, and they're probably going to bounce back fine against Arizona. They're going to probably be tied with Seattle, come that Thursday night matchup. Who knows? Maybe they both lose the week before, the Seattle to Indianapolis, the Rams to Detroit, or they both win. I don't know. You just don't know. That's the thing of the beauty about the NFL. It's very
Yeah,
unpredictable.
especially this year.
But they had a position to really, take control here. I don't know what the Bears are going to do. They're going to keep winning these games. They have a very difficult schedule. It'd be easy to say, oh, they're going to fade. They didn't fade against Philadelphia, so you just never know. And we all wrote off the 49ers. They're still right there. They could probably win this division too. They have an easy schedule until their final 3 games, so they could probably win 2 more games in a row. To their credit, when they play crappy teams, they handle business. The Rams don't, so or at least not today. So we're gonna find out what happens in the next 5 months. But overall, I just can't move on of the fact that they blew an opportunity here to having a cushion in the standings and things like that.
Yeah, and that's a good point by you. We'll see what happens now. Like I said, they have the next 5 weeks. They have to either win out or go 4-1 if they want a shot at that number one seed. I think it's now you have to kind of take care of business the rest of the way. You could have lost a game at the end of the season where you could have rest everybody against the
Yeah,
Cardinals in week
good point.
18. Now you don't have that, so now you might have to play everybody in that week 18, and so we'll see what happens, but I want to, give a shout out to everybody in the comments here. ESG, Q the Fate, the Worm. We had T55. Who else? Daniel Calderon. And a very frustrated comment section today, and well deserved. Like they know what this team is about and what they have. And then what they have in front of them, and they wasted an opportunity here today, and so it's good to see the frustration out, and we'll see if they can correct those. And then the Worm gave you a shout out, said Gilbert nailed it. The 49ers handle bad teams around, though, shaking my head. So with that said, Gilbert, that'll do it for us for this post game show. It sucks that they lost this game, but now, hey, like they're still in first place. Now they just, like I said, they got to either go 4-1 or 5-0 the rest of the way if they want to shot at that number one seed, Gilbert.
Yeah, it's possible. Detroit doesn't look that good this year, and if you beat them and you beat Seattle again, I do want to know what the tiebreaker would be if they split Seattle and Rams, because that's gonna be a tough game in Seattle.
It's
But
gonna be first. It's conference and then it's division, I believe, or division and then conference. So
yeah, and they're
that's
and
why the Bears have the tiebreaker right now
it's
because of
it's funny.
you have to win in your division.
Yeah, it's funny because the 49ers have beaten both of these teams too, so they have an advantage
Yeah.
in the division.
Yep.
Yeah, now I think about it, Seattle's lost 2 in the division. The Rams have lost 1, but if you lose to Seattle, it'd be 2. But that's for down the road.
Yep.
But yeah, let's get out of here, Vic. Am I able to close off here?
Yep. You're ready to go.
The worm says 5-0, baby, got to do it, and I think it's possible, but you never know. As we found out today, games are not that
And then
predictable.
points for the tiebreaker. Yep.
Yeah, and then points, and then you got to do the NFC conference record, so things like that. They lost to the Eagles too, so they lost to the Panthers. That's an NFC loss, so I don't know. I could Victor could be the positive one, I could be the negative one here all day, but they blew it here, so it's time to
Yeah.
get going. Y nos vamos, pues, vámonos.